In episode 3, everybody is leaving Barbados. That includes Rafe. He has to mug a guy for his wallet, but he's able to hop on a boat and get back to Guadeloupe to meet up with his family. At this point, Ward has woken up. When Rafe meets up with Ward, he starts apologizing for screwing everything up, but Ward is very understanding. He tells him that he stepped up in his absence. He did what he had to do. But what he really needs him to do right now is go back to the Outer Banks. There's nothing there for them there anymore. So he wants Rafe to wrap everything up, sell the properties, sell the companies. Leave it so there's nothing attaching the Cameron name to the Outer Banks. Rafe does question why he's going back to the Outer Banks, but his dad convinces him that that's what he needs him to do at this current time. He's not the only one going to the Outer Banks, though. So are the Pogues. They have a debate whether to go back for John B. or not, and that's when they get a phone call from John B. It's pretty muffled because the service is bad, but John B. went to the church and he found his dad. Although that part doesn't get through. The only thing they really hear is John B. say, "Meet us in the Outer Banks." After the initial shock of John B. seeing his dad for the first time, it quickly goes away because they have to get the hell out of that church. Singh's guys are onto them. They know that they're not going to be safe in Barbados, so they're going to need to flee, but not before they stop by and grab something first. John B. and Big John headed to the little alcove that Big John was staying at. While Big John is grabbing some items, the whole time he's telling his son, "I'm on to something, it's big, I'm close." So John B. knows that nothing's changed with his dad. He's still as hungry as ever to find a treasure. John B. does get a little concerned when he sees his dad grab a gun and some bullets and start talking about a retrieval mission. But his dad starts speaking in fortune cookie wisdom, and John B. hasn't seen his dad in so long that he just follows him. Big John does tell his son that the reason why they're rushing so much isn't just Singh, it's Limbri as well. In order to get back to John B., Big John had to get mixed up in a whole lot of things, including Limbri. He knows that now that he's found his son, he's going to owe Carlos something, and he'd rather pay later than now. After stopping at the alcove, there's one more place they need to go. It's a local guy that sells a bunch of artifacts. Big John enters the back door and peeks his head around the corner, and when the merchant sees him, he shuts down the shop because he hasn't seen Big John in a long time. These two used to be partners, but not really anymore. He knows exactly what Big John wants, and Big John doesn't have time to negotiate, so he pulls a gun on him, which really catches the merchant off guard. But he doesn't get flustered. He just hands over what Big John came for, and it's this sculpture. It's probably 1.5 feet. Looks like it weighs about 10 pounds, maybe. Big John tells his son that it's the signpost of Orinoco. They think that it leads towards the treasure of El Dorado. The only problem is it's one of two pieces. They need to find the other piece. On top of it, if you find the other half, you also need to decipher it. As Big John and the merchant are discussing the fact that the merchant still wants his cut of the fortune if it's found, he hears the door open. John B. and Big John get pretty concerned because they don't want visitors at this time, that's for sure. So they start hiding out in the back, and it's their worst nightmare. It's Carlos Singh. When they hear Singh's voice, they start to try to sneak out the back, out a window. And the merchant's doing a really good job of holding up Carlos and his men from doing a search of the property. But John B. and his dad aren't careful enough. They make a little bit of noise, and it tips off Carlos and his men that there are, in fact, people there. They have to race to the marina to get on their boat before they're caught. And it's a close call, but they're able to jump on board and get the hell out of Barbados. Carlos isn't too discouraged about missing out on them because in the long run, he knows where they live. And he also has a pretty good idea of where they would be headed. And they, like everybody else, is headed to the Outer Banks. On the trip there, John B. fills in his dad on the fact that he got married. It is to Sarah Cameron, which he's worried about his dad's reaction to that, but actually his dad's fine with it. He's thrilled for his son. He does think he's too young, but he's happy. Big John then fills his son in on what happened with him. The fact that he was washed up on that island, and it was Carlos's men that found him. He tried to fight them off as best he could. He ended up killing a guy in the process. That was the body that they found. But Carlos dragged him back to Barbados, figuring that he could help find this treasure of El Dorado. Carlos was the one that actually had the signpost of Orinoco. He wanted Big John to decipher it, but the first chance that Big John had, he attacked Carlos, took the signpost, and tried to escape. They then start discussing the whole treasure. Singh believes that the diary holds a clue to the missing piece, and Big John agrees. If they can get the diary, then they're golden. The Pogues also had a long trip back to the Outer Banks and a lot of time to talk. There's a connection going on between Key and JJ. It's like the elephant in the room. At one point, they get really close to each other on the boat. It seems like they're about to kiss, but they're caught by Pope. JJ doesn't want to hurt his friend's feelings, and Pope has a hard time not expressing the fact that he's hurt by this. JJ tries to talk to Pope about it, and Pope explains, look, I'm not happy about this. I'm not going to pretend that this is my favorite thing, but I'm also not going to stop you. If you want to be with Key, go ahead. It seems like, though, JJ is abiding by the rules of misters before sisters. The idea, however, of his friend being with the girl that he has a crush on is really bothering Pope. And the person he confides in about this is Cleo. And Cleo understands. She tells Pope that she's been through a similar situation. She had a crush on a guy, but he was just using her. But the real message she tells Pope is, I'm over it, and I think you need to be too. Why are you focused on thinking about someone who's not thinking about you? They strengthen their connection by creating a little club called the No Love Club. They even have a special handshake for it. About a day later, everybody arrives back in the Outer Banks, although separate locations. Big John is especially happy to be back. He never thought he'd be so happy to see that run-down place he called a home. As they lay down for the night, Big John does ask the most important question. Do you know where that diary is? And John B says, yeah, we have a copy. It's in the Twinkie, which is probably in the impound lot. John B then apologizes for the last time the two had talked, before this encounter. It was a pretty ugly fight. He said some things he regretted, and then he didn't see his dad for a long time, so he just wants to apologize. And Big John completely understands. They then turn in for the night, and John B has a really bad nightmare. But when he's woken up, Sarah is there. She's thrilled to see him. They hug each other, and he excitedly tells her, my dad, I found him. But the thing is, Big John is gone. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.